Hello, everyone. I hope we are doing well. My name is John Musyoki, a junior security analyst in one of the companies in Kenya. And for this session, I am going to talk about penetration testing tools. Gonna give basics of introduction and also maybe get to show some of the tools, the how to look, how they look like, and maybe how we can be able to leverage them to get to assess vulnerabilities within our system. So when it comes to penetration testing and vulnerability assessment, we have a number of areas that put into considerations because we have number of technologies, mobile apps, we have servers running operating systems, and maybe other applications. We have web applications, so we have variety of things that we need to look at. I think for major when it comes to penetration testing, major things are seen in either web applications, mobile apps, and maybe network, of which network at times it composes of maybe the Active Directory, a few servers within the network. So I think I will get to start with web. Share my screen. When it comes to web application penetration testing, before any penetration testing is done, you need to gather like enough information about this system that we need to assess vulnerabilities. We need to find out what kind of technologies is this application are running, what kind of services that are open on this application, what server is it running on, is it a Windows, is it a Linux, what version of the operating system that it's running. Let me give an example. For example, if I was to type google.com on my browser, which is Firefox, and then I do have a browser extension that is called Wapalizer. It's going to give me some basics of few things that are on the other side, maybe for security or maybe helping services delivery when it comes to browsing. So could see that for security, they are using HSTS, which means that if I was trying to downgrade something like HTTPS to HTTP, which transmits data in plain text, it will not be possible. And that means that if I try such an attack, it might end up failing. But if such a thing doesn't exist on a system, then it means I can try sniff things, and maybe that's one of the findings actually, because if data is transmitted in plain text, it means we are risk users who are trying probably to log into our systems, something like payment and such. If I was to type something as like, let me use Microsoft.com. Play URL is right. Yeah. So if I was to look at some of the technologies that are powering this particular web application that I am using, could see actually that they are using a CMS in the backend. They are using some JavaScript libraries. They are using platform as a service, which is Azure Cloud. They have HTTPS. They are using Akamai, probably to distribute their traffic, something like to prevent something like DDoS. The application runs on Java and a few number of things. So these are some of the things that we just the basics that we need to leverage on comes to approaching web application security assessment. Because, for example, if we know kind of libraries that an application is using on their backend, some of the libraries do have vulnerabilities that are probably yet to be patched. The owners of the libraries are yet to develop something to prevent a particular weakness that existed on that library. Hence, a malicious attack or maybe a threat actor can get to utilize such vulnerabilities to gain access to the system, tamper with the system, and do some other things that could harm the system that we are trying to protect. Then another tool, I guess, everyone who is trying to get into cyber will almost get to use it. It's a tool called nmap. Let me just run nmap. Um, nmap. So nmap is a network scanner. So with nmap, we can be able to find the ports that are open on that particular server that we are trying to scan. We can be able to find the services that are running on those servers. We can be able to find the operating systems. We can be able to find the software versions. Sometimes we can actually be able to find vulnerabilities actually using nmap. So if, for example, I was to run nmap dash dash, sorry, yeah, dash script xyz.com. Maybe if I was to run, for example, such a script, the nmap could try find some publicly available vulnerabilities that are listed on the CVE database. Let me just bring in the CVE database. Yeah, so these are common database for vulnerabilities. For example, let's try find a blue CVE. It's a vulnerability that is commonly known on most of the Microsoft servers. So let's try find whether we can be able to get it over here. Yeah, so if you're able to find CVEs or if these are publicly available CVE that is on public databases, you can be able to scan for that vulnerability using Nmap. And if you find vulnerabilities, now you can try getting deep to exploiting. Actually, if you find a vulnerability using Nmap, is a tool called Metasploit that contains all the modules, so you don't like have to do a lot of you just need to learn how do I get to use certain vulnerability against the server that I am trying to pen test on. So for example, if I was trying to hack into a mobile application, there's a payload to be able to not sure. Just a moment. So yeah, Metasploit will be able to give you a lot of payloads, to also get to give you a lot of functionalities, and also something like a command and control, whereby you can get to host your payloads and then get to exploit the target server, and then your device will actually get to hack the server, whereby you can be able to communicate directly with that server that you are trying to attack and achieve your target goals. So just a minute, I read this part. That was about Nmap. So Nmap basically will get to give you information that you need about that particular system. Now, let's go back to finding another tool. There's a tool personally that I do love a lot. Why is it? Yeah, let me just google.com. There's this tool called a Nuclei. So Nuclei is a vulnerability scanner, not like Nmap. So Nmap will get to give you details about that server. But now this tool called Nuclei, I guess every Linux, especially Kali Linux will actually be able to come with this tool pre-installed. So you don't have to look for it. Nuclei will get to find the vulnerabilities for you, and then now it will lessen the work for you. Just probably need to exploit, especially when it comes to applications. It's a very powerful tool that, if properly utilized, can get to save you a lot of work that you need to do when it comes to penetration testing and vulnerability assessment. Yeah, and it has a number of functionalities that you can be able to utilize, get to maximize everything around it. So yeah, and then there's another tool called Zap. And Zap seems I had removed my Zap because I think it had an error. Yeah, so basically for web application, I think web is the one that has most of the tools. And have the fact that it has most of the tools, it means like when you are trying to do vulnerability assessment to web applications, you have variety of tools to choose for different functionalities. There's a tool called Babsuit, very critical that I should mention. These are two versions. These are the community version, which is free, but of course functionalities are a bit limited. Then there's the premium one. Let me just open them. Yeah, we just opened the premium one. So these are the Babsuit Professional that comes with some other features. I mean, some extra features. Let me just open a new project. Yeah, so it comes with some extra features that you can get to utilize in everything that you are doing, including being able to scan automatically, crawl a system. Let me just scan, schedule a scan, and then crawl an audit. And probably I want to scan, for example, google.com. And then okay, these are connectivity issue, so I'm not able to scan. Let me restart. Yeah. Yeah, so sometimes you'll be able to crawl all through the directories or through the files and find some potential vulnerabilities and then give you some output. Then from there you can get to analyze and also validate the tool. This is the premium version, and people prefer to use community version, which is also good. I've also used the community version. These also people can also opt to use the premium version, but now the cracked one where you like don't have to pay. But be careful when you are getting any cracked software that is not licensed, because at times it can harm your system, and also it might bring issues on your operating system or maybe corrupt your files. So yeah, it's one of the best tools when it comes to, you can be able to do things like brute force. You can automate some things. For example, you are trying to test something, for example, SQL injection, and have so many payloads that you want to test. For example, you have like 1,000 payloads. So it's one thing that it will take you a lot of time trying to test for like 1,000 payloads on one particular maybe form or maybe endpoint. So what you can do, Babsuit will help you to get to automate this particular feature. Let me just show how to direct traffic from Babsuit to from the browser that is to Babsuit. So yeah. So when you want to proxy, because Babsuit is a proxy tool. So by a proxy tool, this means that Babsuit will be able to intercept your traffic, intercept the traffic between your browser and the outside internet. So it sits in between. By this means that Bubsuit is able to see what is coming in into your browser and what is going out of your browser. And this gives you power, because when we are trying to browse or maybe try to access websites, we don't know what is happening on the we're just scrolling, we're just clicking, we are just keying in data, but then we don't know how this data is transmitted. But Bubsuit will help you to get to understand that. So let's take a typical example. We are trying to key in, for example, we are trying to log in to a particular system. Let me, for example, say a social media. What happens is that we are going to maybe, let me get, for example, let me say Facebook. I don't know whether it will be able to accept. Yeah. So we are trying to log into Facebook. So immediately we click the login button, we'll be able to access Facebook if the username and the password was correct. But if these credentials are not correct, we are not going to access the Facebook. So let's try. So my proxy is running. I hope it is. Say, for example, abc at gmail.com and say password pass123. And let me try running. Don't save. When you key in such a data, it's submitted to that server that you're accessing. But now it seems like that request has been altered a bit, because there's a tool that exists somewhere in between where these credentials need to be forwarded. So this tool is trying to read in the data that probably you submitted. And wait, yes, I was actually able to capture that. Yeah, I was able to capture a few things from Facebook. Yeah, managed to capture a few things from Facebook. It timed out during the posting. Those are called requests that you make to the internet. The way the internet works is you request for something on the browser and then you'll get a response. So if, for example, I say I type google.com, the browser interprets that as a get google.com. So that's a request that I have made to the server. So it's going to look for the resources for that server and then bring back the resources. So now having a tool in between will make us be able to intercept and then get to see what exactly was requested. If this user is trying to put in some data, sometimes if it's not being transmitted in a secure way, can be able to see that. Then let me. So intruder is the feature that is used to brute force. Let's say, for example, we wanted to brute force something like want to find out whether a certain maybe endpoint exists. So let's say, for example, which one should I use? Let's say, for example, we are trying to find something like admin on this side, or maybe we are trying to get like a word list. Let me use the word list example. We are trying to find some commonly used words. So we have that list, and then we want to find out whether it's part of this URL. So we'll come there and then select, and probably now come and select if my payload how is something that I've copied somewhere from like GitHub, I'll be able to paste that. If it's somewhere on a list, I will be able to load that from a list and then will be able to achieve my target by using that list against the site that I want to pen test. In case of any questions, probably will reach out for maybe any clarifications, any kind of maybe someone is stuck somewhere, and yeah, we'll get to work together and see how can we be able to achieve whatever you are trying to get. We move to the next thing. That is web application, and then now there are a number of tools. Actually, there are so many. If you were to name those tools, it will not, I think it will take quite some time for us to be able to end this call. So just mentioned a few, and then it's upon us, we get to explore. In case of any concern, we can always get in touch and see what's up. So let me disable this so that we can move to the next item. For web penetration testing, there is this thing called a WASP top 10. Let me just WASP top 10. So these are the commonly used vulnerabilities against web applications. This is a project that is maintained, and after some time they get to update these vulnerabilities. So it's good, like when you are trying to test a web application, you don't just start. At least it's good to say for anything else, I'm starting to test. For example, let's say we are following the 2021 way, I'm gonna test everything to do with broken access control. Then after that, I move to cryptographic failures. After that, I move to injection, whereby I'm gonna try different things like cross-site scripting, SQL injection, command injection, so many of them. And definitely you might find something that is quite interesting and then decide to dig deep, or maybe go into a research, and from there you probably now get to bring the impact of this, because at the end of it, in as much as you are trying to test a vulnerability within your system, you have to communicate to the management what is the impact of this thing that we've gotten. I mean, if it's a financial system, does it bring financial loss? Does it bring things like that, data exposure, maybe data leakage? Or maybe can it lead to shutdown of our systems, or maybe things like ransomware and such? So that's where now we get to bring impact to our system. I mean, impact for the things that we found, or maybe the vulnerabilities, what they predispose our systems to. Then, yeah. So if you're not familiar with OWASP top 10, I recommend it's one thing that is very key. This also, I think, OWASP top 10 for mobile. I'll come to that later. Yeah, mobile. So it's quite interesting exploring, and yeah, I believe time is quite moving. So I think I can move to mobile apps penetration testing. So mobile apps, these are applications that will run on our mobile devices. We have iOS. Commonly, I think we have iOS and Android, and majority of the people use Android. But still, when you are doing a penetration testing, you will find that most of the companies have both. I mean, they have the iOS version and they have the Android version to cater for Android, to cater for the people that are running on Android operating systems, and iOS to cater for the guys that are using iPhones. Personally, I think for now, I will talk about Android. iOS maybe we will come later, because I've not had much experience with doing assessment for iOS mobile penetration testing. So yeah, when it comes to mobile application penetration testing, this is quite a different approach. Approaching mobile app penetration testing, because it's an application that being installed somewhere, not like the web that we just have to type the URL and then we're done. So mobile app penetration testing, we first of all need to set up the environment. And but before we set up the environment, there are some tools that come pre-installed on the Linux. For example, APK tool. APK tool is one of the tool, or maybe that you can use to decompile the code for a mobile app. Though it will not give you something that is quite readable, but is a file that is called manifest that contains some configs about the application. And I believe that's where now you will get to learn what is the structure, just like the way you are trying to gather information about a web application. Now, this will get to tell you what permissions are being requested by this mobile app to be installed. What may be some of the technologies that are running on probably the backend server. For example, it's running Firebase. You get to see a number of indicators that will get to show you this application is probably having Firebase as the database. And this is the case now we get to dig deep and find out what are some of the issues that we can look up to when we are trying to test something that is running Firebase on the backend. Then also we have a tool called JDGUI, JDX. And JD. GUI. What's happening today? Okay, let me move on to another thing. Also, the mobile app, you get to use it with Babsuit, whereby you can get to proxy the traffic for mobile app to a proxy tool. So you can install, how do I call it? You can install Android Studio, or it's an alternative, or you can install this software that I'm using. It's called Genymotion. So it will give an emulated environment for your Android device. Or alternatively, you can use a physical device to be able to achieve this. Uh, so let me power on my emulator, my virtual device. So having now installed your virtual device, the the platform that you've been given, now it's time to get started. And then where do we get to start? So especially when you're given a mobile app, and most of the mobile apps have realized that there are bad guys out there. So the first thing they would do is to make sure that that application doesn't run on an emulated environment, either doesn't run on a rooted device. What else? Yeah, those are some of the things that will make sure that they've done. Yeah, their controls to make sure that protected the bad guys from doing harming their applications, or maybe whatever it is that they are carrying. So most of the times you will get to try to install an application and things will not be working out. So what will happen after that? So that's where now you get to reverse engineer the application. Let me see whether, oh yeah, my Jadex is here now. So yeah, this is the tool that we use to reverse engineer an application. You can upload. I do not have test application currently to be able to upload it. And also for the security issues, I'm not going to upload the one that is there for privacy as well of the client. Once you upload the application you'll get to see the code, and then from the code you can get to search for different strings, different functions that maybe are used to implement things like emulator detection, root detection, and then try bypass them. So to bypass them, that's where now we bring in a tool called Frida. So so many tabs open. Okay. Yeah. So Frida will help you to be able to bypass a few other things, inject code into the running application or maybe the device that we are trying to run. We have scripts that are written in JavaScript to be able to interfere with the runtime of the application. So let's say, for example, we have a function, so Z, that is preventing our application from running. This function checks whether our device is rooted, and if it's rooted, it returns true. So what we are going to do with Frida is that we are going to write a script and run it, because now, after reversing the application, we've been able to find what the function, what exactly how the function looks like, and maybe it returns true after finding the application is rooted. This script will find that function and then will return it false. So by this, it means that when this application is trying to run, instead of turning true, it will find a false and then be able to be allowed to run on that Android device. The scripts are written in JavaScript, but then they are called Frida scripts. So you can write a script and then inject it on Frida. You run the script and then run the app. So to be able to, destabilize that particular function and then proceed. These are another method that is called patching, whereby you can be able to patch using the small code that is found when you get to reverse engineer using the APK tool, which is, I think, it's a bit quite difficult compared to the one of using TEDx. But again, it depends on what works for you. What are you most familiar with? Then there's another tool called MobileSafe. So MobileSafe will make your life a bit easier and also get to give you what are some of they're called low-hanging fruits, so that you can get to look on. So yeah, let me get MobileSafe. After running it, will give you a local IP that you can probably access on the browser if you have an APK. For this case, I'm not going to upload the APK that I have for security issues and also for the privacy of the application that I have, because I do not have permissions to use the application for testing purposes on public, platform. When you have your application, you can come and upload your application. Come also static. So it has two options, because when it comes to mobile application, we have two types of testing. We have the static and we have the dynamic. So static is where probably you get to read the code, get to look at how the app is looking like. And then dynamic is where we get to test application while it's running, like the behavior of the application as it runs. So this is what will help us to be able to find, is this application vulnerable to maybe how it's exchanging data, things like cryptography. Are we like able to tap data using a proxy tool? Are we able probably to interfere with something while the app is running, like the logic of the application? So things like API, because I think API, you test them when the application is running. You can't test APIs when, it's just static. Nothing is being exchanged from the server or from the endpoints to the application. So it's kind of a run. Yeah. So MobileSafe, which is a mobile security framework, is an open source framework that will get to save you most of the time with the two options, both static and dynamic. So once you upload your app, you will get to even have that app interact with the emulator that is on this side. So you'll be able to perform a number of functionalities and find it a bit easier. So I recommend anyone who is trying to get to start their journey on mobile security vulnerability assessment to get to look at MobileSafe. There is publicly available document, and also if you get challenges, you can always reach out to probably the contact that will be provided, or maybe the platform that will be provided, to get maybe assistance on maybe the way forward on whatever the goal that you are trying to achieve. So this is quite an amazing thing that I recommend everyone to have a look at it. And yeah, it's gonna be quite interesting. So that's about mobile apps. So some of the things. So the first thing you're going to test is if the application runs on an emulator, especially if it's an application that involves financial related stuff. That's actually a finding because we don't expect a certain application to just run anywhere without having those kind of controls. So developers are trying to make sure that they put such things to make it harder. Because the goals of the team that is cooperating with the developers to make sure that they, in as much as you might try to pen- penetrate into whatever it is that they build, but they make sure that if you try, it's not going to be a easy walk on the park for you. It's gonna be a struggle, and the way hackers work, I mean, they go where there's an easy target. So no one would want like to spend days or maybe weeks or even months trying to break into something when they have a different target where they can get to break in seconds, minutes, or maybe a few hours. So the goal is to make sure that they've made it as hard as possible, and that's why they get to put such control. So it's good that we get to familiarize ourselves with maybe what are some of the first things that we can have to look on when it comes to mobile app penetration testing. There are a number of tools like Droza and other tools. We can't just exhaust everything on this single session. The end goal is to make sure that we've been able to achieve the target of testing our application. Just like the way it comes to developing a web application, someone would opt to use PHP on the backend. Another one will opt to use maybe Python and Django on the backend of the application. Someone else will choose to use maybe something like Node.js, but at the end of it, they have an application. It's serving the purpose, and that's the end goal. So no matter the tool you use, as long as it's okay, because there are so many of them in the industry. Others are open source, others are paid. Yeah, yeah. But generally, for any vulnerability assessment, before you get to do anything, it's good to gather enough information because information is power, and having the right information makes sure that you're going to hit the right target. You're going to test the right thing. You don't have to surround, I mean, you don't have to like try so many other things because you do not have the clear information of exactly where you are trying to head to. So information gathering, I think that's where we actually should spend most of the time in, because when you have all the information and the information is actually right about the target, then you definitely are not going to spend a lot of time trying to guess things up and down. So yeah, I think that's it for this introduction. In case of any queries, you'll get to reach out for maybe kind of a conversation that we can have, or maybe some QA, and then from there we can see how we can help each other in this field. If you are getting started, do not be discouraged. I encourage you to keep on trying a number of things. Get the operating system that you feel like comfortable with you, get the tools installed, get to see, because there are so many platforms out there that we can get to test our environment. This Track Me, this Hack the Box. Let me just post them. This Track Me, and this also Hack, Hack the Box. Yeah, I think these are the commonly used platform when it comes to simulated environments. Somewhere you can learn without limitation, because you're not allowed to scan anyone's system. You're not allowed to reverse anyone's mobile application without permission. You'll find yourself in jail or in court, or you land in trouble with the law enforcement agencies. I encourage each and every one of us to get an account on these platforms. And if you get stuck again, we have communities that exist. You can always reach out to when someone is actually so good at a particular lab that you tried. Maybe it's a server, or maybe it's a web, or maybe it's a mobile app that you'd want to just test and find out whether your skills, I mean, you've been able to grab something in regards to what you've learned. So yeah, I think now that's it for today. And thank you so much for following up with this session. I wish everyone well and all the best in your endeavor in cybersecurity. And yeah, thank you.